Hi guys, it's Mr. Dave with the Ray Kitty Creation Workshop, and you are watching the Ray Kitty Science Project. Thanks for tuning in again. We've got some fun science we're going to do here today, and this is stuff that you can all do at home very inexpensively if you don't already have the materials. This is all also pretty safe no matter what the age group is for this one, and you can kind of scale this if you are the younger ones. You can use these and to kind of show a little bit about the electrolytes that we're working with, and the older students can get into doing a little bit of the math. I know math, yeah, but you can get into that math if you are using with the little bit older ones. I'll kind of briefly touch on the math, but I teach science for a reason, and that is because I am lousy at math. No, math has a large part, especially when we get into chemistry and physics and things, but we're just going to kind of tell you what the math is, and we won't worry about getting it into it today. But if you want, like I said, this is a neat one if you are trying to kind of incorporate a little bit of math into your science, and you can sneak it in maybe without those kiddos even noticing. So we're going to be working today with electrolytes. Okay? Now, electrolytes are minerals that will kind of carry an electric charge. Okay? You have probably seen those commercials. If you're 1,000 years old like me, you probably remember Michael Jordan sweating blue when he was drinking the Gatorade or Powerade and all those kind of things. If you're a little bit younger, I'm sure you've seen commercials for Powerade, Prime, all those kind of electrolyte drinks. Okay? Now, the reason we need those electrolytes and we need to replenish those electrolytes, it's not just so we can sweat blue or anything like that. Replenishing those electrolytes, yeah, see this one here even says 50% more electrolytes. So the reason that we need to replenish those electrolytes is when we are exercising or when we are doing something strenuous, even if it's strenuous thinking, we are requiring our body to transport electricity. Okay, that electricity has to come through to contract your muscles. It has to be there in your brain for your little synapses to fire and for all those things to work so you can think all those wonderful thoughts. And so as we're using, we will sweat out those electrolytes. And we will need to replenish them. So that's why, especially here in New Mexico, it's starting to get towards summertime. You want to make sure you stay hydrated, right? And it's always a big thing now. Luckily, people pay attention now to being hydrated, and that hydration is so important. But part of that hydration is those electrolytes, okay? Now, I'm not doing an advertisement here for Powerade. I purchased Powerade because it was at the dollar store. So that was why I got Powerade. I also have a hydration little packs that you put in. I got these also from the dollar store. And this orange juice. Now, you may notice something about this orange juice. It's kind of brown. Right? I'm still going to refer to it as orange juice. I was doing this in some classes all week long this week, and everybody's like, ew, that orange juice is brown. Now, the reason it's actually brown is it doesn't have a lot of the chemicals they'll put in to make it that nice neon orange that you'll drink sometimes. This is a little bit just less additives and preservative orange juice. It's still yummy. I also got this from the dollar store. So you can see where I'm headed with that this can be a very inexpensive experiment, and it's a neat way of showing your students, your kids, how these electrolytes work and how important they are, okay? I also have this here, okay? And this is distilled water. So I will be using distilled water. It doesn't matter what brand you buy. You can buy that at the grocery store very easily, but we will be using distilled water. Now, distilled water is important, especially when we are doing chemistry, because the pH balance, meaning our acids and things in distilled water, is a lot closer to neutral. And also, distilled water doesn't have a high mineral content. Okay? Remember how we talked about electrolytes are those minerals in the water. Distilled water, they will evaporate it, and then as it condensates, they'll use that water. So the minerals and things stay behind. So I will be using distilled water today. In your Ray Kitty's science kit that you're building at home, you will want to make sure that you have distilled water. Okay, so I have distilled water. And I'm also going to be using regular tap water, okay? I got that right out of here in the studio, and I made sure to mark them, okay? So I put a little T on my tap water, and the reason for that is I don't want to get them confused, and water looks a lot like water when you look at it really close, okay? So my distilled water and my tap water don't look any different. So I did put a marking with a T on that one. I did put a D on my distilled water, okay? And I have a little one here that also has the distilled water in it. And this I'm just going to be using for rinsing in between, okay? Because we want an accurate measurement. And so we don't want to get too much of our other little liquids or electrolytes in when we're taking those measurements, okay? So what you'll need for this one is your distilled water, okay? And whatever drinks that it is that you want to test. I have orange juice, I have Powerade, and I have this Pure Kick Hydrate along with our distilled water. So we're going to be testing all of those different drinks to see the electrolyte levels in these drinks, okay? Now, in order to test those, the one thing that you may not already have at home is one of these guys right here. Okay, this is a digital multimeter, and remember how I said this was a very inexpensive project? I don't like to plug particular businesses, but Harbor Freight. You can get these cheaper than you can get them on Amazon or the internet anywhere. That is the place to get these things. You can get, I bought this for less than $5. So you can get this digital multimeter for less than $5, meaning this entire experiment, batteries and everything like that, we're really looking at right around $10, okay? And once you have one of these guys, there's a lot of other experiments that you can do with these. So this is a great thing to have to add to your science kit, okay? And that is a digital multimeter. Like I say, I don't want to plug anywhere, but that is definitely the cheapest place you can buy these. And they're good quality, they work. They're great. I've had this in classes where kids are dropping them, where they're pulling on cords. These are a good one to have, okay? So a digital multimeter, your electrolytes, I have a spool of copper wire, okay? Now, this copper wire here is not coated, and that's very important, okay? So there's no little coating on it. Now, a lot of times you'll see a copper wire, and even though it looks like this, it will have a coating on it. Now, the cheapest way to do this, if you want to do it inexpensively, is to find a wire that you've got laying around the house that is not plugged into anything and that you're not using for anything, and just strip off that insulator, okay? You can strip that insulator off, and if you have a copper lead on there, it'll be a copper wire, and that's a very inexpensive way to do it. If you do want to purchase this, you can purchase this at the hardware store for a very, very small amount of money. I got 100 feet here for next to nothing, okay? But you want to make sure that it is uninsulated. So it may say bare, it may say uninsulated, or it may just say pure copper wire, okay? So that's what you're looking for, and you will need that copper wire for this one. You'll also need a 9-volt battery, okay? 9-volt batteries used to be super common. They were in everything. They're not as common anymore. Like when I do ask in a classroom what this battery is, it's not as common that your students will know what this one is, but you will need a 9-volt battery, okay? And then I'm using a clip just to make it a little bit easier. Again, hardware store, this is a quarter. This is not very expensive. Or an auto parts store, they'll have these. These are very inexpensive. Okay, so you'll need a little clip, and that just makes it easier. It's not necessary, but it does make it a little bit easier. And these things here, once you have them, like our little alligator clips here, once you have this little electronic setup, there's a lot of different experiments you can do. You can electroplate things. You can work with electrolysis. There is a lot you can do with just this simple kit here, okay? So These little guys, again, very inexpensive. And that should kind of round up what you need for, oh wait, you need a straw. You'll need just a little straw, okay? And I'm gonna cut this straw, so I'm gonna need some scissors. These are what we're gonna need for this project here. Run and get those now. Okay, I'm sure you have them already. So we're gonna get this started. I have my distilled water, I have my tap water, okay? And this one here I'm gonna use for my rinse water. So I'm going to be going back and forth into that one, but my distilled water, my tap water, I'm gonna pour some of our orange juice into one of these ones here. So I'm going to have some orange juice. Now you'll wanna make sure you have a similar amount of each liquid, okay? You don't have to measure it out. It just has to be similar, okay? And that is so your electrodes that we're gonna be making can be kind of submersed about the same amount. So I'm gonna pour my Powerade in one. I've got my orange juice in one, and I have my distilled water, okay? So distilled water, my tap water, and my orange juice. Now, we're going to get to kind of building our tester because you are going to modify this tester just a little bit, and I'll show you how. You will want to be careful when you are doing this one, not because you can hurt yourself. As I said, this one is a very, very safe one to do at home. As far as warnings, you know, make sure you do have a parent present with you because you're using scissors. If it's an older student, there's really nothing dangerous here unless you end up poking yourself with this little copper wire. So for an older student, this one is one of the very few that I would say you don't really need that adult supervision, but it's always fun to have an adult with you so they can enjoy the science with you, okay? So in order to modify our little tester here, what we're going to do is we are going to make an open circuit, okay? An open circuit just means it doesn't complete that circle, okay? A circuit is a circle. And for DC, or direct current to flow, we need that circuit closed, okay? When it's closed, those electrons can flow. When we open that circuit, okay, just like turning off a light switch opens a circuit, when we open that circuit, those electrons can't flow, okay? So we're gonna create an open circuit and we're gonna close our circuit with our electrolyte solutions. So we're gonna use these solutions to close our circuit. And that's what we're going to measure, is that closed circuit based on our electrolytes, okay? So we're gonna make an open circuit. Now I want you to keep that in mind because when you're doing this here, you're going to wanna connect all your wires. We're not going to connect all those wires. We're making an open circuit, okay? So step one, make sure your tester is off, okay? As I said, the one danger here is blowing the little bitty fuse in your tester if you do end up shorting it out too long. So you don't want to blow the fuse in your tester. There's not an unsafe amount of electricity, but you can blow that tester and then you're out $5, okay? So I have my copper wire, and this is going to be used for my 2 electrodes. So I'm going to take it and I'm going to cut it in half. Now this copper wire, you can cut with regular scissors. Make sure mom or dad knows you're using their scissors to cut copper wire. But a very high gauge like this, it's not going to damage your scissors. So I have 2 little bitty strips of copper wire, okay? These are going to be our electrodes. Our electrodes are going to be like probes that we're going to put into our water, okay? So we don't want those touching, so we want to create an insulator. Remember, this is an open circuit. And so what I'm going to do with these copper wires here is I am going to just wrap them around my little straw, okay? So I have it wrapped around the straw here, and then I'm going to wrap this other one all the way on the other side of the straw. And what that does is this straw does not conduct electricity. So it keeps my electrodes apart, okay? So now this is going to be the opening in our circuit that when we submerge it, we're going to close that circuit with our electrolyte solution. So your first step is to make this little cute little bug or alien head thing with your straw, okay? And that was by wrapping that copper wire around those. Now you want to leave some nice long leads. These leads are going to be what we're clipping to in just a minute, okay? So step one is to make your electrodes and have an insulator between them, and that's what we're using that straw for, okay? So now we've got our little insulator and our leads. We have our tester here, okay? Now, in our tester, there's a bunch of different kinds, but if you are using this kind here, we will have our black onto the COM or the common, and then our red onto that low voltage one. So these are both going to be together toward the bottom, okay? If you're using this type of tester, that's where those are going to be, okay? Now, we're going to have the red is going to stay red. Now, if you have different color alligator clips, it really doesn't matter. The color of the alligator clip doesn't change how well they conduct. It doesn't change any of those things. But I am going to be sticking with red and green. And the reason I'm using green is it shows up a little bit better on the table here. And that way you can see what's going on. If you want to use red and black, if you want to use purple and purple, purple's awesome, okay? So I have 3 of these alligator clips, okay? The reason we're going to use these is so that we can make our connections very easily, and then you can take them apart. Remember, you don't need those, but it would require a couple more hands to hold everything together. So we're going to use these alligator clips so we can make a nice tester, okay? So I've got my clip that I'm going to put onto my battery. This will clip right to the battery. Surprisingly enough, not a lot of kids nowadays have done that step right there, clipped that onto a battery. And that's funny to me because, like, that's how we used to hook up everything. If I wanted to play Maniac or whatever, this is how I would do that. Now, when you do that, these are now live, okay? Now, there's not enough electricity there to even shock you for you to even feel it. If you put it on your tongue, you would feel it. But this is not enough electricity to shock you, but it is enough electricity to short circuit and heat up that battery, okay? So if that battery, if all of a sudden you're like, my battery's getting really hot, then I don't know why you have to talk like that. But if your battery heats up, it's because you have a short somewhere, okay? So keep these leads apart. And we now have our red and our black, just like we have our red and our black on our tester, okay? So we have a red and a black and a red and a black. We're going to kind of keep track of which are going to which, even though you can use different colors. I'm going to use the red to the red just for sake of illustration here, so it makes it a little bit easier for you guys to follow along. Now, anytime you're clipping these, you want to make sure that you're not clipping onto a plastic or an insulator. You want to clip directly to that conductive part, okay? So my little alligator clip is going directly to that conductive part on our lead, okay? So we've got this one here. My tester is off, okay? And so this red one here is going to go directly to the red one on my battery, okay? So I'm going to go red to red. That is going to be our positive. And so we have half of a circuit now, okay? Now you do not want to hook this black one up to that black one. Then you have a complete circuit there. You'll be saying, my battery's getting hot. If you turn this off, you're going to blow the fuse in your tester unless you have this tester on for testing batteries, okay? So we have that half. Now we're going to use our little electrodes that we made, okay? And we're going to put those in the circuit. So we're going to hook up I'm using green onto my black. Like I said, that's just so that you can see it. This is our negative side. So I clipped to one of my little copper leads here, okay? And the other side I clipped to the black on my tester, okay? So this is our negative. Remember, we still don't have a circuit. So what we're going to do now is we're going to get closer. Our circuit will still be open, even though I'm going to clip this one onto the black on my battery and this one onto my other copper lead, okay? So you can see these are both on the other copper leads. Now I'm going to lay this on the table just so you can see that we do actually have a circle, okay? So we have a circuit. We have a circle here, but that circuit is broken right here, okay? Even though it's touching, it's insulated, okay? And that is very important because that's where we're going to test our materials. Now we're going to start out with our distilled water, okay? This is distilled water, so this is the water that we did purchase there. And distilled water has a very, 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 very low mineral content. So it is a very poor very poor conductor with those electrolytes. Now, I wrote on here, and it's hard to read my writing, so that's terrible. But we have this little weird U thing, okay? And maybe you can see it right on here. So if we look right here, it says 200, and it has a little bitty U on there, okay? So yeah, right there, you can see that. It's kind of like a U, but that is actually going to be our microamps, okay? So that little bitty U symbol is going to be microamps, okay? And we're going to pay attention to that. Like I said, that's the math part that you guys can get into in a little bit. But this is microamps, and we're going to check that out first, okay? So you want your setting to microamps when we're checking distilled water, okay? When we're checking our other things, other than our regular tap water, we may switch back and forth. Our other ones, we're going to go to milliamps, but right now we're using microamps, okay? And I'll describe the difference in a minute after you kind of see what's going on. So our tester is to microamps. It is off right now. I'm going to make sure that I don't have a short anywhere, so I'm going to look at my circuit one more time, and I am going to turn on my little tester here, okay? And I will go ahead and get our electrodes, okay? And I'm going to put our electrodes, make sure I'm not making contact here, okay? And we're going to put our electrodes into the distilled water, okay? So our electrodes are going to go into the distilled water, and when they do, we can see that we're getting that reading there, okay? Looking at about 160. It's going to continue to change, so I'm going to average that out to about 16. Let me see where that decimal is. Yeah, there you go. So I'm going to keep us at about 165, okay? And so we saw 165 was our measurement that we got in the distilled water. Now remember, those are microamps, okay? So I'm going to write down 165, and I'm left-handed. Don't make fun of me. All right, so 165, okay? And that is that weird little U thing, okay? We had 165 in our distilled water, DH2O, okay? So that'll be our measurement there, and we're going to mess with those in a little bit so we can show you what's up. Now remember, I said that our distilled water has very, very, very little of our electrolytes, okay? So we're going to check some of these other ones here, and we're going to see what kind of measurement we get. Now, before we do, we're going to turn our tester off, so in case while we're moving things, we don't want to short it out and burn out the fuse in our tester. So I'm going to move my distilled water right over here, and we'll go to tap water next, okay? Because I'm going to keep that same setting. We're going to keep it on microamps, and we're going to see about this tap water. Now, if on your tester you get a little 1 with a decimal way over there, that means you've maxed out that setting, so you actually will have to change it. But we're going to start with that 200 microamps, okay? And I'm going to turn my tester on. And I'm going to test our tap water, okay? So we're going to test our tap water, and our tap water, boom, we maxed out those settings already. See, so we have too many for that one. So now I'm going to go to our milliamps, and we're at 0.2 milliamps, okay? So we changed that setting there to the milliamps, and our tap water, just H2O, had 0.2 milliamps, okay? So tap water, this tap water, it's going to be different. I live here in Albuquerque. It's different everywhere, okay? So I'm going to rinse off my electrode, okay? And we're going to test our, let's test our orange juice first, okay? We're going to test our orange juice. And I'm going to have my settings down to that next one there, and that is that 200 milliamps, okay? So we're on milliamps instead of microamps now. I'm going to Turn this on. Let's see how our orange juice does as far as those electrolytes, okay? Now, though tap water had 0.2, this one here, we're looking at 37, okay? So I have 30, I'm gonna say 36 kind of as an average there. So you will notice that I am averaging that out because that is gonna continue to change and fluctuate a little bit. I'm rinsing off my electrode, okay? Because I don't want that orange juice in it when I'm testing my next one, my Gatorade. The distilled water is the one you're gonna wanna rinse it off in because it has the least of those electrolytes, okay? So now we hear the advertisements about Gatorade having more electrolytes and all those kind of things, 50% more electrolytes. So let's, oh wait, I didn't write down this one here. I think I said 32, right? I think I said 32. So no, 26. So our orange juice, I'm going to use the chemical call sign for orange juice, and that is OJ, right? Anyway, and we're going to go, I think it was 26, okay? So we're going to go with 26. If you're like rewatching this and you're like, Mr. Dave, you got that number wrong? Yeah, I might have. All right, so we're going to test our Gatorade now, or our Powerade. We're on the milliamps again. And we're going to get our little tester, and we're going to see how that Powerade does versus that orange juice. So we're going to put that in there, and we are seeing, I was at 40 at first, and so yeah, we're getting pretty, going back and forth with like 30, well, pretty solid around 30, okay? So we're going to see that our Powerade has 30, okay? So we're going to go with 30 for the Powerade. And so the Powerade has a little bit more than the orange juice, okay? But a lot more than the distilled water. Now, when we look, I'm going to do POW for Powerade. That is the chemical, call sign for Powerade. Power, like that. Now, what we're seeing here, okay, when we're looking at this, is you say, okay, well, the tap water had a lot more, okay, than these other ones. The tap water was at 165. Now, what you need to, and this is where the fun math part comes in. A milliamp, okay, and a microamp. This is 1,000th of one of these milliamps, okay? So that would mean if we were to actually write it out here, you would have to do that decimal. So our distilled water with that decimal, my writing is terrible here, I apologize, but that 0.00165 versus the Powerade that had 30, okay? So there is a huge difference in these substances here, and this particular little tester that you've made, you can test all kinds of different things. Stick it in a potato, stick it in a carrot, and check those electrolyte levels, okay? So we did see that our Powerade, even though it's nothing but chock full of vitamins and chemicals, it does have the most of those electrolytes, okay? All right, so do this one at home. I would love to kind of comment on what you get with some of these different materials. I am Mr. Dave. Thank you for watching the Ray Kitty Science Project. And remember, science shows you matter.